All right, so you landed the energy. Congrats. Now, let's make sure you nail that self-introduction.
Yeah.
It's that first impression, right? And we want to make it unforgettable. And we're diving into some really unique source material today to help you out.
Okay.
We've got a YouTube video transcript, but get this, it's in Korean. But
Wow.
don't worry, we've got the translations. And what's fascinating is how much we can learn about strong communication, even across languages.
Yeah.
Get this, there are some surprising insights about storytelling, even in his super short intro.
What we're going to uncover are the core principles of a compelling self-introduction. And these apply no matter where you are or what language you're speaking.
I love that. Okay, so digging into these translated keywords, I'm seeing some of the usual suspects. My name is experience, skills, but then it gets interesting. I'm seeing goals, passion, company, and even contribution. It's almost like this Korean YouTuber is going beyond just listing qualifications.
It's Think about it from the hiring manager's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just looking for a list of facts.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see how you think, what motivates you, and how you see yourself fitting into their team. These key words hit on those points. You're demonstrating you're already thinking about your potential impact.
That's clever. Showing them you're not just looking for a job, you're looking to contribute. Now, what really caught my eye were some less expected phrases. Visual anchor, storytelling, even impact, and memorable. This is starting to sound like a masterclass in communication. What's the thinking behind a visual anchor?
It's about giving your listener something to latch onto something that makes you stand out.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you mentioned you always carry a specific notebook where you sketch ideas.
What?
Suddenly, you're not just applicant number 3, you're the notebook idea person. That's memorable.
I see. It's like giving them a mental snapshot that connects to you. But how do you weave a whole story into a quick intro? You don't want to give them your whole life history, right?
The key is to be concise and focus on a specific anecdote that highlights your strengths. Maybe it's a time you faced a challenge and overcame it, or a project where you took initiative. Even a brief story can create an emotional connection.
Okay, so a story that reveals something about how you work or who you are, but told in a way that's relevant to what they're looking for.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. Now, I gotta admit, some of these phrases were a bit, well, let's just say they raised an eyebrow. We're talking words like octopus, dancing, and spicy. What do you make of these?
Without knowing the full context, it's tough to say for sure, but we can speculate a bit. Octopus could be about multitasking. Dancing might represent creativity. And spicy could indicate a bold personality.
It's like a cultural puzzle. It's fascinating how even a few words can spark so much curiosity.
What's important here is that self-introduction shouldn't be cookie cutter.
Right.
You want to express yourself authentically while still being mindful of your audience.
That's a great point. So instead of getting hung up on the literal translation of those quirky words, we can use them as a reminder to think outside the box, to find ways to inject our personality into our introduction. But how do we balance that with making sure we're tailoring it to this specific company and role?
Research is key. Before you walk into that interview, immerse yourself in the company's world. Explore their website, their mission statement, recent news articles, anything to get a feel for their culture and values.
So it's about understanding their language, so to speak.
Precisely, then connect the dots. How do your skills and experiences align with their needs? This way, your introduction isn't just about you, it's about how you fit into their vision.
That's a much more strategic approach than just listing off your resume bullet points.
Think of it like this. You're essentially pitching yourself as the solution to their needs.
I like that. Okay, so we've talked about visual anchors and storytelling, but this idea of impact really jumps out at me.
Yes.
You want your introduction to stick with them, right?
Absolutely. To create impact, you need a clear message. What's the one thing you want them to remember about you? Your passion for problem solving, your ability to lead teams. Once you have that core message, you can structure your intro around it.
I love how you're bringing in this idea of structure, because without it, it's easy to just ramble on and lose their attention.
Exactly. And one powerful structure to consider is the problem-solution-result framework.
Problem-solution-result. Tell me more about that.
Think of it like a mini-story. Briefly mention a relevant problem you faced, highlight the solution you implemented, and then describe the positive result you achieved. It showcases your skills and experience in a concise and engaging way.
So it's like giving them a sneak peek into your problem-solving abilities. That's way more compelling than just saying, I'm a great problem solver.
Exactly. It's about showing, not just telling.
Right.
And when you tie it back to the company's needs, You're demonstrating that you understand their challenges and you have the skills to address them.
Wow, this is going way beyond the typical tell me about yourself advice.
It's about taking those surface-level tips and digging deeper, applying communication theory and strategic thinking to create a self-introduction that truly resonates.
I'm already feeling more confident just hearing about these strategies. But before we get too carried away with the content, I want to touch on something else that popped up in the transcript. Memorable. How do we make sure our introduction doesn't just blend in with all the other candidates?
That's where authenticity comes in. People can spot a phony a mile away, so let your genuine personality shine through. Share a quick anecdote that reveals your passion for the field or your unique approach to work. Don't be afraid to show a little bit of your quirks and interests, as long as they're appropriate for the setting.
It's about finding that sweet spot between being professional and letting your personality shine through.
Exactly, and remember, confidence is contagious. When you believe in your value, others are more likely to believe in you too.
So project confidence through your body language, your tone of voice, and most importantly, through the words you choose.
Precisely. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Okay, so we've got the content, but what about the how? How do we deliver our self-introduction in a way that makes a lasting impression?
Think about it like a performance you're on stage, and you have a captive audience. Make eye contact, smile, and use your voice to convey your enthusiasm.
It's like you're giving a mini presentation about yourself and you want to captivate your audience.
And just like any good presentation practice makes perfect, rehearse your self-introduction out loud in front of a mirror or with a friend. Get comfortable with the words and the flow, but don't over-rehearse to the point where it sounds robotic.
That's great advice. You want it to sound natural and conversational, not like you're reciting a memorized script.
Exactly, and don't be afraid to pause, take a breath, and connect with your listener.
This is all making so much sense. We've covered so much ground already, from visual anchors to storytelling to the power of confidence and nonverbal communication. It's amazing how much insight we've gained from a Korean YouTube transcript.
It just goes to show that you can find inspiration in the most unexpected places.
And that the principles of effective communication transcend language barriers. So even if you're not fluent in Korean, you can still learn a lot from this deep dive.
Absolutely.
Okay, before we wrap up part one, I want to go back to this idea of visual anchors. We've talked about how they can make you more memorable, but how do we actually choose an effective visual anchor? What are some things to keep in mind?
That's a great question. Let's unpack that further in part two, where we'll explore different types of visual anchors and how to choose one that aligns with your personal brand and the message you want to convey.
Sounds good. We'll be right back after a quick break to dive even deeper into the art of the self-introduction and help you craft an intro that leaves a lasting impression.
Welcome back. I'm excited to delve deeper into this idea of visual anchors. It's such a simple yet powerful concept, and I think we can uncover even more practical applications for it.
I agree. In part one, we talked about how a visual anchor can make you more memorable, but I'm curious to learn more about the different types of visual anchors and how we can choose one that truly represents us.
You're right, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. The key is to find a visual anchor that aligns with your personal brand and the message you want to convey in the interview.
Okay, so walk me through some examples. What are some different types of visual anchors that people could use?
Absolutely. Let's start with objects. These could be physical items that you bring to the interview or that you reference in your introduction. For example, if you're a designer, you could bring a portfolio of your work or mention a specific design tool that you're passionate about.
Ah, so it's about showcasing something tangible that represents your skills or interests.
Precisely. And objects can be a great way to spark conversation and create a visual connection with the interviewer.
That makes sense. Now, what about metaphors? You mentioned those earlier. How can we use metaphors as visual anchors?
Metaphors are powerful because they can tap into shared understanding and create vivid imagery. For example, if you're describing yourself as a bridge builder, you're instantly conveying a sense of collaboration and connecting people.
That's a great example. So it's about finding a metaphor that encapsulates your key strengths or qualities.
Exactly. And metaphors can be particularly effective in industries where abstract concepts or complex ideas need to be communicated clearly.
Okay, so we've got objects and metaphors. What other types of visual anchors are out there?
Another powerful option is using personal stories. You can weave in a brief anecdote that highlights your values, your work ethic, or a pivotal moment in your career.
Ah, so it's about using storytelling to create a visual in the interviewer's mind.
Precisely. And stories have this amazing ability to connect with people on an emotional level and make your message more memorable.
So to recap, we've got objects, metaphors, and personal stories as potential visual anchors. How do we choose the right one for our specific situation?
Start by thinking about the message you want to convey. What are your key strengths and how do they align with the company's needs? Then brainstorm different visual anchors that could represent those strengths effectively.
And don't be afraid to get creative and think outside the box.
Absolutely. The goal is to find a visual anchor that is both authentic to you and relevant to the interview context.
This is all super helpful. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about something else that came up in the Korean transcript, this idea of tailoring your introduction to the company culture. I know we touched on this in part one, but I'd love to explore it in more depth.
That's a crucial aspect of crafting an impactful self-introduction. It's not enough to have a well-rehearsed spiel. You need to make sure it resonates with the specific company you're interviewing with.
Right, because every company has its own unique personality and values.
Exactly. And the more you understand their culture, the better you can tailor your introduction to align with their expectations.
So how do we do that? What are some practical steps we can take to research a company's culture?
First and foremost, immerse yourself in their online presence. Explore their website. Read their mission statement. Check out their blog posts and social media feeds. Pay attention to the language they use, the imagery they employ, and the stories they share.
It's like becoming a detective and piecing together clues about their values and priorities.
Exactly. And don't just rely on their official channels. Look for employee testimonials on sites like Glassdoor or LinkedIn to get an insider perspective.
Ah, that's a great tip. It's about getting a holistic view of what it's really like to work there.
Precisely. And once you have a good understanding of their culture, think about how your values and work style align with theirs.
So it's about finding common ground and showcasing how you'd be a natural fit within their team.
Exactly. For example, if you're interviewing at a company that prides itself on innovation and risk-taking, you might want to highlight your entrepreneurial spirit and your willingness to experiment.
Right. You want to show them that you're on the same wavelength and that you share their values.
Precisely. And remember, tailoring your introduction isn't about being inauthentic or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about finding the points of intersection between your personal brand and the company's culture.
It's about showcasing the best version of yourself, the version that aligns most closely with their needs and expectations.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears again and talk about another key ingredient for a memorable self-introduction: storytelling. We touched on this earlier in the context of visual anchors, but I want to explore it further as a standalone technique.
Yes, storytelling. The Korean transcript mentioned it several times, and I know it's a powerful communication tool, but I'm always a bit intimidated by it. I'm not a natural storyteller, so I'm always worried about coming across as cheesy or inauthentic.
I understand that feeling.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, everyone has stories to tell. And when it comes to self-introductions, you don't need to be a Shakespearean orator to weave in a compelling narrative.
Okay, that's reassuring. So, how do we find the right stories to tell in an interview setting?
Think about the key messages you want to convey about your skills, experience, and personality. Then brainstorm specific situations or anecdotes that illustrate those messages.
So, it's about connecting our experiences to the qualities we want to highlight.
Precisely. And one effective framework for structuring your stories is the STAR method.
The STAR method, I've heard of that. Can you refresh my memory on what that stands for?
Absolutely.
Huh.
STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. It's a way of structuring your stories to provide context, highlight your role, and demonstrate the positive outcome you achieve.
That makes sense. So we set the scene, describe the challenge, explain what we did, and then showcase the results.
Exactly. And when you use the STAR method, you're providing a clear and concise narrative that showcases your skills and experience in a way that's both engaging and informative.
That's a great tip. I'm definitely going to practice using the STAR method to structure my stories.
I highly recommend it. Now let's talk about another crucial aspect of storytelling: authenticity.
Yes, authenticity. I know we keep coming back to this, but it's so important. How do we make sure our stories feel genuine and relatable, not forced or contrived?
It starts with choosing stories that are personally meaningful to you. Don't try to force a story that doesn't feel authentic. Instead, focus on experiences that genuinely shaped you, taught you valuable lessons, or showcase your passion.
So it's about tapping into our own experiences and sharing stories that resonate with us on a personal level.
Exactly. And when you're telling your story, Don't be afraid to show a little bit of vulnerability. Share your challenges, your struggles, and how you overcame them.
That's a great point. Vulnerability can create connection and make us more relatable.
Precisely. And remember, you don't need to be perfect or have all the answers. In fact, sharing your imperfections can make you more human and authentic.
This is also insightful. I'm feeling much more confident about using storytelling in my self-introduction. But I have one more question about this. How do we keep our stories concise and relevant to the interview? I don't want to ramble on and lose the interviewer's attention.
That's a great question. Conciseness is key. Aim for stories that are no more than a minute or two long. And when you're crafting your story, always keep the interviewer's perspective in mind. Ask yourself, how does this story relate to the job I'm applying for?
Right. It's about showcasing skills and experiences that are directly relevant to the role.
Precisely. And if you're ever unsure whether a story is relevant or not, err on the side of caution. It's better to leave them wanting more than to bore them with unnecessary details.
Great advice. We've covered so much ground in this part of the deep dive, from different types of visual anchors to tailoring your introduction to company culture, and now the power of storytelling. I'm feeling so much more prepared to craft a compelling and memorable self-introduction.
Me too. But there's still more to uncover. In part 3, we'll delve into nonverbal communication confidence and other crucial elements that can take your self-introduction to the next level.
Sounds great. Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll tie everything together and give you the tools to rock that interview. We're back for the final part of our deep dive into crafting the perfect self-introduction. We've covered so much already, from visual anchors and storytelling to tailoring our message and projecting confidence. But there's one more element from that Korean transcript I want to explore. Nonverbal communication. I feel like this is often overlooked, but it can have a huge impact on how we're perceived.
Oh, absolutely. Nonverbal cues can speak volumes, sometimes even louder than our words.
Right.
And when it comes to self-introductions, they can make or break that crucial first impression.
Okay, so let's break it down. What are some specific nonverbal cues that we should be mindful of during an interview?
Eye contact. Eye contact is paramount. It conveys engagement, confidence, and sincerity. Aim for a balance, making eye contact while speaking and listening, but also looking away naturally to avoid staring intensely.
Right, because you don't want to come across as creepy or overly intense.
Exactly. And then there's your smile. A genuine smile can instantly put people at ease and create a positive connection.
But what if you're feeling nervous? I know my smile can sometimes look more like a grimace when I'm under pressure.
That's understandable. Practice smiling in the mirror beforehand to find a smile that feels natural and comfortable for you. And remember, even a slight smile is better than a neutral expression or a frown.
Good point. Okay, what else should we be paying attention to?
Your posture. Your posture and body language speak volumes about your confidence and professionalism.
Okay.
Sit up straight, shoulders relaxed, and lean slightly forward to show you're engaged and attentive.
So avoid slouching or crossing your arms, which can come across as closed off or defensive.
Exactly. And don't forget about your hands. Use them to emphasize points or to convey enthusiasm, but avoid fidgeting or excessive hand gestures that can distract from your message.
It's all about finding that balance between being expressive and staying composed.
Precisely. And here's another interesting technique that was hinted at in the Korean transcript. Mirroring.
Mirroring. What do you mean by that?
Subtly mirroring the interviewer's body language and tone of voice can create a sense of rapport and connection.
Ah, I see. So if they lean forward, you lean forward slightly. If they speak softly, you adjust your volume accordingly.
Exactly. But be subtle about it.
Right.
You don't want to mimic them overtly, as that can come across as insincere or even creepy.
Right. It's about creating a subconscious sense of harmony, not turning into their mirror image.
Exactly. And finally, remember that your voice is a powerful instrument. Use it to convey confidence and enthusiasm. Speak clearly, vary your tone, and project your voice so that you can be heard easily.
That's such a good point. I know I tend to speak faster when I'm nervous, so I need to be mindful of slowing down and enunciating clearly.
Practice makes perfect. Record yourself delivering your self-introduction and listen back to identify any areas where you can improve your vocal delivery.
This is all incredibly helpful. It's amazing how much thought and intentionality goes into nonverbal communication, even a short self-introduction.
It's about being aware of the signals you're sending and consciously using your body language and vocal cues to reinforce your message.
Okay, so we've covered nonverbal communication. Now let's talk about something that's closely related, confidence. It's a theme that's woven throughout this entire deep dive. How can we project confidence even if we're feeling nervous or unsure of ourselves?
Confidence starts from within. It's about believing in your value and your abilities. Remember, you were invited for this interview for a reason. They see something in you, so own that.
Right. It's about acknowledging our strengths and recognizing that we have something unique to offer.
Exactly. And one way to boost your confidence is to practice power posing.
Power posing. I've heard of that. Isn't that about standing like Wonder Woman?
Exactly. Research has shown that adopting expansive postures like standing with your hands on your hips or raising your arms in a V shape can actually increase testosterone levels and reduce cortisol levels, making you feel more confident and powerful.
Wow, I never knew that. So even if we're feeling nervous on the inside, we can trick our brains into feeling more confident by striking a power pose.
Precisely. And it doesn't have to be anything dramatic or obvious. You can even do it subtly while sitting down by maintaining good posture and keeping your head held high.
That's a great tip. And it's a reminder that our body language can influence not only how others perceive us, but also how we feel about ourselves.
Absolutely. And here's another powerful technique for boosting confidence: positive self-talk.
Ah, yes, the power of positive thinking. But how do we make sure our self-talk is genuine and not just empty affirmations?
Focus on your past successes and the skills and qualities that have brought you to this point. Remind yourself of your strengths, your accomplishments, and the challenges you've overcome.
So instead of dwelling on our fears and insecurities, we shift our focus to our capabilities and our track record of success.
Exactly. And remember, everyone makes mistakes. Don't let a past setback or a moment of self-doubt derail your confidence. Instead, view it as a learning opportunity and a chance to grow.
That's a great mindset shift. It's about turning our perceived weaknesses into opportunities for growth and resilience.
Precisely. Now let's bring all of these elements together. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive, from visual anchors and storytelling to tailoring your introduction, projecting confidence, and mastering nonverbal communication. It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But I want to leave you with a few key takeaways that you could apply to your next interview.
Sounds good. Let's distill all of this wisdom into actionable advice.
First and foremost, preparation is key. Research the company, understand their culture, and tailor your introduction to their specific needs and expectations.
Right. It's about showing them that you've done your homework and that you're genuinely interested in being a part of their team.
Next, craft a compelling story. Use the STAR method to structure your narrative and choose anecdotes that highlight your relevant skills and experiences.
And remember, authenticity is paramount. Share stories that are personally meaningful and allow your personality to shine through.
Project confidence through your body language, your tone of voice, and your choice of words. Stand tall, make eye contact, smile genuinely, and speak clearly and enthusiastically.
And don't be afraid to practice beforehand. Rehearse your self-introduction out loud, record yourself, and get feedback from a friend or mentor.
And finally, believe in yourself. You have something unique to offer, and you deserve to be in that interview room. So own your value, embrace your strengths, and let your confidence shine.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on the art of the self-introduction. Who knew that a Korean YouTube transcript could unlock so much wisdom?
It just goes to show that valuable lessons can come from the most unexpected places.
And that the principles of effective communication transcend language barriers.
Absolutely.
So as you prepare for your next interview, remember the lessons we've uncovered today. Be authentic, be confident, tell your story, and let your personality shine. And most importantly, believe in yourself and your ability to make a lasting impression.
And if you can do that, you'll not only nail that self-introduction, you'll set yourself up for success in the entire interview process.
This is your moment to shine. Go out there and rock that interview.